ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and welcome to the Thursday afternoon edition of the Closing Bell with good friend and colleague, Mr. Ron Marmolevsky, live from LA. Go follow Ron at Ron A Sports on X, and you will find a guy second to none. As I always say in our headlines, talking NCAAF and NFL like no other. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download the app, and it is free. And of course, AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. 'Tis the season. Let Terry Smith fill up your parties with steaks, seafood, chops, appetizers, wines. He's got it all. Head on over to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Big game in the NFL tonight, but we always start talking college football. This is where Ron can let loose in some college football talk. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Mr. Ron Marmolevsky. What's up, Ron?
Hi, nice to be back with you. Oh my goodness. On Thanksgiving, we always say we're thankful for so many things, and it's a good day for families and stuff. I'm so thankful now that we're 1 week past Thanksgiving, because we dealt with, 50 some college football games, 60 college football games, season wins, conference futures, all that stuff was going on. Then we had a full slate of NFL games, and no, they didn't start on Sunday. There were 3 on Thursday and another one on Friday and so on. I'm so grateful there are 9 college games this week.
This used to be an amazing Saturday. Now there's a couple games on Friday, but the Saturday SEC final, Big Ten final, all the finals where you saw the pride, the emotion, we fought all year to get to this game and someone's going to hold the trophy. And there's 2 huge marquee games, 1 versus 2, Ohio State, Indiana. And of course the SEC, Georgia versus Alabama. We all know Kirby Smart, 1-7 against Alabama. Alabama's already gone in between the hedges this year and won. Kirby's 1 win was a few years ago. Hey, we'll let Alabama win the SEC title because Alabama had to win to get into the Final Four. And then they got their rematch, and then Kirby says, hold my beer while I hold the trophy, and we're national champs here. Give us a feel of Ron Marmolevsky as we get ready for Friday and Saturday, and how, I hate to say and use the word meaningless some of these games are, but they are meaningless.
Indiana wants to prove something, that they belong after losing to Ohio State in the regular season last year, but it's night and day. Even a different program from last year's great thing. So they want to prove something. And that Alabama, Georgia, we know the history, and Kirby Smart wants to right a wrong. But this is where people want to go to 16-team playoffs. They want to go to 24. They bypassed 8 to get to 12 when 8 was the sweet spot. If we were looking at a 4 or an 8-team playoff, this would be an incredibly meaningful Saturday. But it's not that meaningful because Indiana loses, they're in. Ohio State loses, they're in. Most likely Alabama loses, they're in. We're not 100% sure of that. Georgia loses, they're in. So we lose some of that luster. You have a play-in game for BYU, but not for Texas Tech. You obviously have Duke and Virginia where, the stakes are all or nothing there in the ACC, the watered down ACC, and then some of the other group of 5 conferences. But it's not the same as when we had a 14 playoff.
I'm going to stay in the SEC. I usually wait for that because, you're going to. I reached out to Jeff Benson today from the Circa. Thank you so much, Three. Say hello to Derek for me. They opened the game of Pick'em. Okay, there's only one way that number can go, and it did. It went to 2.5. Now, Alabama loses. They have 3 losses. And the committee's going to sit there and say, well, we can stop a lot of this drama here and put Notre Dame and Miami both in. And Alabama was sorry. You had 3 losses. You've lost 2 in the last month, 6 weeks. Oklahoma at home. Now this. We could do that to you, and then they would be penalized. Don't forget, Ohio State didn't go to a championship game last year, sat back, got the extra week off, got refreshed and steamrolled. It's almost like this is a playoff game for Alabama because if they lose, they're going to be sitting on pins and needles come Sunday.
This is where that, it's not a 4-letter word, but that ugly word called politics comes in because Alabama was not in the playoffs last year, right? They were eliminated from the playoffs last year. So now you got a situation where would the committee do that again a second time in a row? Probably not if it was a close loss, because then they would have split the series and stuff. And Alabama should really be on the fringe in terms of the teams. I kind of had to reevaluate Miami, for example, because I thought that Miami didn't really, because they played in the ACC and lost 2 games in the ACC. I thought, well, really, they don't belong. Notre Dame belongs, but they really are just the same as Notre Dame and some of these others. I have Notre Dame higher power rated, but I do think that there's so many politics that are going to be going on with this that I don't know if they could eliminate Alabama 2 years in a row. If it's not for another SEC team, that league would, you could hear mutiny. You could hear the end of this playoff system. You could hear leagues splintering off. All kinds of stuff. Someone's going to be upset. And if it's Alabama again, there would be amazing cries for changing the whole system.
I lost the initial part of your rebuttal because these wireless and the internet are bugging the bleep out of me. So I'm not going to ask you to go over it. If I say something you already said, I apologize. Sure. On the show earlier today with Matt Grissom, and tomorrow I'll have Nick Hathcote on, who's a Notre Dame guy. Notre Dame used to stir the pot. And I love what Marcus Freeman has done. He's out there politicking for his team again, like last year. His name's getting thrown out as a potential head coach, maybe for the Giants, which would be that's for another show. But this, you control us. You got your own network. You pick and choose who you're going to play. And oh, by the way, you're not in a conference. If I'm the committee, I'm going to say this. I give you next year, I'll let you do what you've been doing, but the following year, you pick, because you're not in a conference championship game, but you're dictating to us. You lost to 2 teams. One of them's right behind you who already beat you. And I know you're playing great, and I know on the neutral field, everyone would have Notre Dame 5.5, 6-point favorites. I know all that. You know all that. But this non-conference in football, you play in a conference in every other sport. I would just say, hey, if you want to go out and start your own conference, go ahead, because there's not going to be a lot of teams that are going to follow you.
Yeah, so the counter argument is these conferences are way too big. You've got 18 teams in one conference. You've got 17. You've got 16, depending on what conference. And the unbalanced conference and the schedules in the conferences are really telling the tale here. How many games against the top group did Miami play? How many games in the top group did some of these other schools play? Did Oregon play? How many did, especially in the SEC? Vandy is going to be penalized because they didn't play a lot of the highest group of teams in the SEC. So you have unbalanced schedules right in there. I mean, Duke is in there, but Miami, how many games did they play against top level opponents? So my argument in favor of Notre Dame would be, hey, your conference isn't all that great anyway. And part of the problem is because you ended up playing the bottom feeders, but we don't know from year to year, especially with NIL and the portal and everything else with transfers. We don't know from year to year who's going to be good and who's going to be bad. Not everybody, a year ago to date, not everybody had Texas Tech as the third best team in the nation. They'd be lucky to be fifth in their own conference and stuff like that. BYU with all these wins. So you don't know who you're going to match up against in conference that's going to be really good. It's just too bad the conferences got too big.
All right, so I'm not here to compliment what Steve Sarkisian did for Texas. He's out there telling everyone, we went out to Ohio State, defending champs. We fought them tooth and nail. We lost by a touchdown. If instead of them traveling to Ohio State, if they stayed home and played Ohio University, they would have been 40-point favorites, and they'd be sitting here with 2 losses. They just beat undefeated Texas A&M, okay? The counter. We're not in. Now Alabama loses opening week to Florida State. At Florida State, 13-point favorites. They have a great run. They lose to Oklahoma, and now they're sitting here in the championship game. So back to them for a quick second. It's almost like, well, if we're going to penalize Texas, 3 losses, 1 at Ohio State, first game of the year, well, here comes Alabama, 3 losses. Let's just say they do lose to Georgia, which I'm having a hard time with that game. Now they have 3 losses, but that was a SEC or a title game.
I don't really have the answer for that. I understand Texas's point of view, obviously, and I wish they would have played Ohio because I needed 1 more loss from Ohio. So, but it's too bad that didn't happen. But on the other hand, Texas lost a couple games down the stretch. I'm kind of a believer in 2 things. One, how many games did you lose at home? And Texas lost, I think, a home game, maybe a neutral site game and stuff like that. How many games did you lose at home? And I'm kind of a believer in how did you do in your last 5-6 games? I really want to discount that first game. The fact that Notre Dame lost to Miami of Ohio, underdog by 3, you give 3 points or whatever for home field advantage. It wasn't really a loss. So I want to say, okay, and Alabama lost to Florida State, but that was their first game with a whole new roster and Florida State's first game with a whole new roster. I'd rather reward performance as to what happened the last 5-6 weeks. And Texas in a revenge game. Now, who was it? I guess it was Alabama, Oklahoma. Alabama had a revenge game against Oklahoma and lost at home. So that was a problem. And then you have to go back to Texas, Oklahoma, who won that game. There's just too many pieces of the puzzle. You're just not going to satisfy everyone. And then you're not going to satisfy anyone if BYU upsets Texas Tech.
And going back to what you were saying, Alabama beat Georgia in Georgia. In comes Oklahoma. Remember back when there was just 2 teams? You could lose the first game, win out, and you still might sneak in. Then there was 4 teams. It was a matter of when you lost. If you lost your first or second game and cheated out, you still might get in the Final Four. And as you just said, you like to see your resume the last 5 or 6 games. Well, now Oklahoma beats Alabama, and now they could lose to Georgia. And it is a shitstorm. Excuse my French. Well, she said, who said, blah, 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 blah. And I've been asking everyone, you're one of them. What am I missing this year with this Oregon team? That flash, that flair, that Bo Nix, that swag. I've been hyping up this Texas Tech team for how many weeks? Finally, the committee watched the game. They watched Oregon play Washington, and they won and they covered. but they watched this Texas Tech team. And they finally moved them inside the bubble of the top four at number 4 and Oregon out. Right move? And if so, what took them so long?
I think they're just focused. The first focus to me is what's happening in the Big Ten and what's happening in the SEC. They dismissed the ACC almost from the beginning of the rankings because they saw they were just beating each other. Nothing was happening there. They kind of took Texas Tech for granted, and Texas Tech's one loss was without their quarterback. He was hurt for that game. So I think it just took them a long time to get involved in that game. To be honest, nobody really wants to see Oklahoma in it, even though we know they're in it, because power rating wise, they'd be something like 14th. They're just not high enough. They play tremendous defense, but we haven't seen a lot out of their offense, although I think Mateer with a month off might surprise some people. I personally would love to see Vandy in it. They're an exciting team. They're overachieving. They're doing a million things right, but they don't have the strength of schedule that I can't endorse them. Subjectivity, I don't know how you do it with unbalanced schedules. That's why they're probably going to go to 16 teams. And the Big Ten is only going to have 3 teams this year, so they're mad. The SEC, somebody's going to get squeezed out, so they're mad. So they're going to drive this to where they're going to have 8 of the 16 teams in 2026 or 2027 in the playoffs. And we're all going to say, gee, same old matchup again. And it's not good for college football.
And lastly, UNI plays Tulane, North Texas, that is. And the best team will be outside looking in there too, and that's James Madison.
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to my friend Tommy Lozano, Sportsbook Tom, who does his ratings. He lives nearby. We've had breakfast a couple of times. You should listen to his podcast. It's really good. I posed the Twitter question out there. Give me your power ratings for James Madison, North Texas, and Tulane. Who's 1, 2, and 3? And Tommy and I are very much aligned here. I have James Madison 4 points better than North Texas on neutral ground, and 6.5 points better than Tulane on neutral ground. Tulane's at home, so really Tulane North Texas is going to be a toss-up game. One of them is getting in because they value the American Conference. What has James Madison done other than beat the teams on their schedule and beat them pretty handily and stuff like that? Unfortunately, all 3 of these teams have a common denominator. They're all losing their coach, which is just so sad. These are now feeder programs to the next level. It's so sad for James Madison, who's lost now 2 coaches in 3 years, North Texas and Tulane, who's lost 2 coaches in 4 years, that these are stepping stones to the brutal. I mean, you got all these crazy coaches going to the SEC and they all can't win at the same time. So somebody's going to be knocked down. But you are right. James Madison is the best of those 3.
And transition into the NFL. And again, want to give a good afternoon to Mr. Russell Saylor. Hopefully your Colts have weathered the storm. It's a Colts number. What they will do at Jacksonville. We'll talk to the real coach over here, Mr. Ron, in a few minutes about your Colts. NFC or NFL, of course, not for long. Let's go to Thanksgiving and Friday, where the Circa contest took an absolute bloodbath. On Wednesday, all 3 dogs not only covered, they won outright. Again, the coin flip with the Lions and the Panthers. I kind of knew in that first drive which Panther team was showing up. As Mr. Lucky checks in live from Japan, he says, good morning, by the way. He's 14 hours ahead of us there. The second game, again, Dallas at home, the Chiefs struggling. Dallas kind of had their way. Their defense is still shining as they bottle up Mahomes. And then the nightcap, I thought, 10.5 without Cool Joe, dropped down to 7, but that mystique of Joe Burrow coming back, and it was kind of evident early, even though the Ravens playing that bend, don't break defense, 5-6 field goals from Cincinnati, but they routed the Ravens there. Thoughts on Thanksgiving Day, Ron?
Well, I said on the show last week that the NFL wanted points and they arranged teams to give you points. I mean, if you look at the visitors who came in to play, Detroit and Dallas, the ones who always play on Thanksgiving, you got Jordan Love playing on that game. You had Pat Mahomes playing that day. Then you had Joe Burrow playing, and then Cincinnati's defense against Baltimore. So we expected points, points, points. So my surprise was that Baltimore didn't contribute against Cincinnati's defense. I think Baltimore's defense played well enough, and I've talked about this with Chris and Ted just a few minutes ago, really about 45 minutes ago, that Baltimore's been playing much better defense lately. But what happened to their offense that they only scored that few points against Cincinnati? In the meantime, like you said, Dallas played, they're playing much better defense. So that game became more of a toss-up. And then the other game, Kansas City, it's do or die now for them because they just got into a situation where they ran into this hot Dallas team and they didn't score. They scored 28. That's a good number. Pat Mahomes is having a good year, but it wasn't good enough. Kansas City's defense is not getting to opposing quarterbacks.
Friday, in come the Bears, and I talked to you backstage. I've talked here every week. I've talked on all my shows. The Bears have duplicated what the Patriots have done, less one game. Same blueprint. First year, new head coach. Second year, quarterback. Bring in a culture. And no one wants to talk about the Bears. 7-point dogs. We had them on our card. Go to Philly, who, again, we just don't know what the bleep's going on. Big win for the Bears, +7 and win outright.
Well, that was my loser last week, so I can't take any credit for that one. I thought there would be turnover regression in that particular game, but the Bears seem to think that there is no such thing as turnover regression because they're +17 on the year. They got another +1, but even with a +1 turnover ratio, they were the right side in the game. So I was wrong in that particular game. I know it was not a bet for Philly necessarily that I had. It was a bet against Chicago that they couldn't sustain what they were doing, that they couldn't continue to win the turnover battle. You saw, I didn't think Caleb Williams would be effective against Philadelphia, and he was only 14 of 29, if I recall. But the passes that he did complete were meaningful. Again, Ben Johnson schemes him to put him in favorable situations. It's up to Caleb to complete those passes. And then what they did to Philadelphia's run defense hasn't been done in the Knicks, for almost the entirety of Nick Sirianni's career at Philadelphia. What Chicago did running the ball was amazing. So I have to give them credit.
We talked about, we were anointing the Rams. Rams team to beat in the NFC. Most people had them number one on the overall in the league. They're the number one team to beat in their power rankings. I was looking for power rankings. 9.5-point favorites. They got to go cross country to Carolina. What people seem to have forgotten was, let me see, prior to last Sunday's game, Rams traveled to 49ers on a Thursday night game, win outright. Rams come back home, tough battle against Seattle, and win. Rams following Sunday night, I think to be exact, host the Bucs, 7-point favorites, and win. Now they're reading their clippings, number one power rated in the whole NFL. Now we got to travel to Carolina, cross country, to face Bryce Young, a team, Carolina, who now not only covered the 9.5, beat them outright. And oh, by the way, guys, 7 wins. So everyone that bet the Carolina team total under when the season started, you can now make that a doily or whatever because they cashed their over.
Yeah, a lot of things going on in this game. I didn't call it a trap game, as I mentioned and as I wrote on Sunday morning. I called it kind of a distraction game for the Rams. They weren't looking ahead to the next opponent. They just, okay, it's Carolina. We're not going to get revved up for this. And they paid the price. But in this league, it's been a really good year in terms of handicapping for myself. And I know other people have had very good years and stuff like that. But The problem is you can still be hit with some surprises from week to week, and there's still teams in the league. Last year it was Seattle. I think also Indianapolis last year I couldn't figure out that well. This year it's Carolina. One week I want to say Bryce Young shouldn't be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and the next week I think they should give him a 5-year contract. It's just, I don't know what they're doing, but they're beating Green Bay, or they're hanging with the Rams. They're doing all these things, and then the next week they look, Bryce Young looks very ordinary. So I don't know what it is for Carolina. I will get them perfectly right this week, Jeff, because they don't play.
Perfect answer there. Tonight we talked backstage. Listen, guys, this Dallas-Detroit game is a playoff game. Lose and you're out. And I'll say it even more. This Lions team, if they lose, they are really out. They've been leaking a lot of oil. Everyone knows here. Ron knows here. Russell knows here. I read the market. So on Thanksgiving Day, Detroit opened up 2.5 against the Packers. They didn't open up at 3.5. They didn't open up at 3. They opened up 2.5. Why 2.5? So the public can push them to 3. Packers win the game outright. And by the way, guys, you guys know this isn't a perfect science.
Yeah.
The Lions opened up at 3.5. They didn't open up at 2.5. They didn't open up at 3. They opened at 3.5. Immediately goes to 3. There's only one way this number can go. The surging Cowboys versus the leaking oil mash unit called the Lions. 11 guys on the report. Oh, by the way, St. Brown probably out again. So I reach out to Mr. Benson and say, Jeff, what's going on here? And I says, you're either putting a stake in this and you're begging for Dallas money. He goes, yeah, we're a Dallas house this week, just as they are an Alabama house this week. Well, around 12 o'clock, magically, everyone in the world goes to 3.5. They can't get any Dallas money. What is going on here, Ron?
Well, it's hard quite to know. I believe people have not completely bought into Dallas, which is a little bit understandable because I still have problems with their secondary. CeeDee Lamb has dropped a few too many passes. They don't have that marquee running back. If you compare running backs, actually Williams is having a really good year for Dallas, but he's overshadowed by Gibbs on the other side. And everybody's talking about, well, the Lions, every time they lose a game, then they win the next week. Of course, they were lucky a couple weeks ago to beat the Giants. The Giants had them beat, but the Giants, well, we know they're the Giants because, the Giants could be 8 or 9 wins this year if they wouldn't just beat themselves. So part of that is, okay, the Lions bounce back. Part of that is they're home on a Thursday, although I have to remember this too. It's a full week rest for both teams. They went Thursday to Thursday. So it's not a short week game. It's just a regular 7 days here. So I think the handicapping is just kind of going both ways. There are people that can make a case for Dallas. Detroit's not functioning on all cylinders. Detroit's hurt. They're losing their number 1 receiver probably again. They have a number 3 receiver that's out. They have their number 2 tight end out. And their number 1 tight end is already out. Their defense is Aiden Hutchinson and a bunch of other guys around him. And you can make a case for Detroit in that Dallas secondary, Goff should have a really big day in this particular game. Aiden Hutchinson is somebody who could maybe disrupt Dak Prescott. And you can make a case maybe Dallas can't do it 4 weeks in a row. So I could see both sides. To me, this is the kind of game that should have two-way action.
Well, let's go over to the AFC. It's the world of the Patriots this year. If everyone forgot, 2-2 in September, lose opening day to the Raiders. Then they win a game. Then they lose at home again to the Steelers, and then A-Chain steps out of bounds, and next thing you know, they're 2-2. Haven't lost since. And it was funny because Sunday night, Denver goes to Washington, 6.5 point favorites. There was not one person on social media that was on Washington. You couldn't give away a Washington ticket. Ends up going 27-20 OT, 27-26 2-point conversion failed. Washington covers, Denver wins. I knew right then going into Monday, we had the last piece of our Westgate card, Giants plus 7 or 7.5. The whole world was on the Giants, and Drake May, and it was a physical. It went back to the early 2000s, that physical defense of Brewski, Seymour, Rodney Harrison laid it down the line. It was physicality. Just ask Jackson Dart. They didn't go out of bounds. They kind of got knocked out of bounds. But the Patriots made a statement. We're going to the bye week. We're the number one team in the AFC. We know we're coming to home to face Buffalo, who Jeff Sherman put his look-ahead line, and I'm like, well, I think they're going to have Buffalo 1.5 here because it's more of a must-win. Pats win, then unfortunately the AFC East is a wrap, and here we go as the Patriots get ready to travel to Baltimore. Jeff Sherman has the Patriots -2 in that look-ahead line. Thoughts on the Pats, what you saw on Monday as they head into the bye?
The first thing, what I saw on Monday is what bad teams do. Punt return against you. Long kickoff return against you. The stub the toe field goal kind of thing. Special teams, when you see teams not execute that well, part of it is because their coaching has to go to 3 levels: offense, defense, and special teams. And the Giants, lost the special team battle by a wide margin. And then New England, they just did what they've been doing. And Drake May has been doing it without a tremendous run offense, which separates him from maybe some of the other quarterbacks, especially the year 2 quarterbacks, is that Henderson, he's a splash runner. He can run 2-2-2, 42, 2-2-2, and you get him out in space. That's what he's going to be in the NFL. And he's dangerous. You can't ignore him. But he's not going to move the chain. And that's why they have Stevenson back from injury running the bulk of the carries in crunch time to try to get the physical first down. But New England's just going about their business. Drake May is super confident. He's got enough talent going on. The revival of Hunter Henry has been a big part. I mean, he almost disappeared for a year or 2 under Bill Belichick there. And sharing carries with and touches with Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry survives. He stays there, and now he's thriving. And the players love playing for their coach. And so this chemistry thing, that's part of the equation. When you learn how to win, them in Chicago, they're learning how to win, and things are going very well for them. So, I don't think Chicago will end up with the number 1 seed, but it's quite possible New England will end up with the number 1 seed, and that's going to be fascinating in these races come playoff time.
Top 3, again, Pats, Denver, and Russell Sailor's Colts. Colts surprisingly favored at the Jags, and again, Drake May, I was going to say. Mm-hmm. Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen. All first year, all at the top of the heap right now. Bears and Pats, number 1 seeds. Jags now ahead in a division where the Colts have now slipped, and here come the Texans. Surprised Colts are favored at Jacksonville?
I made the Colts 1. The real number on my power ratings would be 0.5. So I had to decide, would I make it even or would I make it 1? And I just chose 1. I kind of did a matchup analysis before I set the line. I usually wait and do the matchup analysis later. I like Jacksonville's defense. I think it's playing, above my expectations. And now it doesn't matter expectations. It's already 12 weeks into the season. So it's what it is. It's not my expectations anymore. But Indy's defense is playing a tad better than Jacksonville. I think Daniel Jones, I know he's playing with a little bit of an injury, and I know there's regression to the mean, which was predictable, but he's still better than Trevor Lawrence. And then you have the running game, and you have the better running back on Indianapolis too. So from that standpoint, I'm not surprised. The brick wall that Indy has to face this year is, can they win in Jacksonville, which they haven't done since 2013 or 2014. It's been a long time. And this is such an important game because Jacksonville has a very easy schedule down the stretch. if you look at a couple of their home games. This game may decide who wins the division. Houston still has a couple more tough games, including going to Kansas City. If Jacksonville wins, that's quite a statement for the Jags. And this is a coin flip. You ask me who's going to win, ask me 50 times, I'll say 25 times Indy and 25 times Jacksonville. I still can't buy completely Daniel Jones, but I've kind of learned that I shouldn't buy Trevor Lawrence either.
Well, and now the fun begins. Kansas City must win. Andy Reid says he's going to start tickling tonsils, whatever that meant. In come the surging Texans, winners of, I think it was 4 in a row. We had them last Sunday in Houston. Stroud can move the ball, very erratic in the red zone. Just I shake my head. It's not that first year Stroud that we saw yet, at least. But here comes Kansas City, 3.5-point favorites. There's some threes out there now. A defense from the Texans, a front seven that's going to put pressure on Mahomes. Their wide receivers just aren't getting open. Their ineffectiveness, again, in the red zone, turnovers. The list is endless. I mean, it's put up or shut up, and it starts this Sunday. 3.5. I mean, the Chiefs going to find a way to win. If not, season's over, and the Texans win another one.
Yeah, another fascinating game and a slate of absolutely fascinating games. Yeah, Kansas City probably has to run the table depending on the Charger injury situation, which is dire these days, unfortunately. But Kansas City has the capability to do that. I know I get pushback, but my ratings are mechanical, and if there's no injuries involved, I have a formula for setting my power ratings, and Kansas City still is 5th in my power ratings. So they may not make the playoffs, but they're my 5th rated team. Hey, a few years ago, Tennessee was my 12th or 14th rated team, and they were the number 1 seed, and they were knocked out that first round with Vrabel. It just happened, the schedule and so on. New England and Mike Vrabel were on that same path, but I think they're a little bit better than, they're not my 12th or 14th rated team like that Tennessee team was. This is another situation very similar to the Indy Jacksonville. Houston has to find a way to beat Kansas City because they haven't been able to do that. They haven't played with the big boys yet, in my opinion. Houston's a well-coached team. I really like the way they play. I love defensive style teams. They could frustrate Mahomes, but Mahomes is having a good year, believe it or not. Statistically better than last year, but they have to get over the hump and win this game. Houston, because of their schedule, may still not make the playoffs, or they could win the division. We don't know that. On paper, you'd say Houston's better suited to play this game. This is their best chance to beat Kansas City, but I still have to see it first. I'm just not jumping for joy and saying I want to take Houston in this game.
Buffalo gets a shot at the second week of Joe Burrow back, hanging a 5.5, 53.5. Which Bills team's going to show up? They're at home. Man, Cool Joe looked real smooth. No T. Higgins. I don't know if he's playing or not. I know one thing. He's getting a paycheck, so he's happy. Baltimore. Egg on their face last week, a couple extra days off. In come the limping Steelers, 5.5-point favorites. My spidey senses are up. We have Ravens tickets to make the playoffs when they were down and out. We have them to win the division. Lamar just don't look good. And the funny thing is, on Thursday, what did they do? What they always do. They forgot about the running game. Once they got a chase, they keep the ball here. Lamar, you throw here, you throw here. He couldn't hit water in a boat in the middle of an ocean. I'm telling you, when the pressure's on, but being up 20-30, he can hit with the best of them. So they host the Steelers. And then, of course, the other big game, Philly and Chargers. So you talked about KC looking up, and the 3 teams that are looking up already beat them. I mean, swing away. Ravens, Steelers, Philly, Chargers, Bills, Cincy. Have at it.
Yeah, it's not just Kansas City, but the Chargers lost to both, I think, Indianapolis and Jacksonville, if I remember correctly. They lost two, and those are wild card type teams too. So it's tough sledding for Kansas City and the Chargers. It behooves them to win they can't rely on tiebreakers. That's the thing. They don't automatically control their own destiny. When we talk about the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, yeah, let's get back to that old-fashioned Harbaugh versus uh, uh, Tomlin, smash mouth football. Let's run Henry 20 plus times. Let's get back to that 1916 type of atmosphere. That would be the way I would play this particular game. I mean, these teams usually you start a season and you say, oh, Pittsburgh's playing Baltimore twice. One win for Baltimore, one win for Pittsburgh. That's it. Didn't happen last year because Derrick Henry was on Baltimore. He wasn't on them in past years, and they used him. If they forget about Henry again, we're looking at one win for Pittsburgh, one win for Baltimore again. This is the Derrick Henry game, really, because Pittsburgh's not firing on all cylinders whatsoever. And we know for a fact that Lamar Jackson is a shell of himself right now because he's barely run the ball. He will run it on 3rd and long when he has to, but he's not doing it with style. He's doing it to avoid contact and because he must do it. That's not the Lamar Jackson that we know, the MVP. So we've got issues on both sides of the ball. I think you just line it up and see which offensive line and which defensive line wins that battle. And as for Cincinnati, they're not really in the race. I mean, Buffalo is much more of a playoff type team because they win this game. They go to 9-4. We talked about Kansas City and the Chargers schedule. Cincinnati would have to win the division. We know that Pittsburgh and Baltimore will pick up a couple wins because they play each other. Cincy has to run the table and pray to get in.
And closing thoughts before we get to your closing thoughts. Philly, we just don't know what's going on. It just, listen, if they played 60 minutes, foot on the gas, they'll score 35-40 against anyone. It's just how they operate. But there's games where they'll play a half and take a second half off. Barkley just not getting the ball. They can't run, or they just decided not to run. So many things going wrong. We know about their defense. Insert the Chargers. Maybe Hampton comes back. Maybe he doesn't. Vidal looked good last week. Still, the injuries in the mass unit on the Chargers here. I thought it was a Eagle number. I saw some threes in opening numbers. They're trying to show me here 2, which it wasn't. Maybe 2.5. But Eagles favored for a reason, or is this Harbaugh's last stand and the Eagles go limping back home?
Well, can the Eagles get a little bit more lucky than they have so far? I mean, CeeDee Lamb dropped a bunch of passes in the opener. The Eagles win. Mahomes makes that foolish pass in the red zone, and Philly beats Kansas City. We know about the blocked field goal touchdown in the Ram-Philly game. Part of me wants to see Philly just implode and watch them house clean at the end of the year because they're so dysfunctional. But here they get another break because Herbert is not 100%. He's going to be compromised most likely in how he throws the ball. So I actually did not set a number on this game because I didn't know how to set the number on this particular game with the Chargers injuries to the key quarterback position in particular. So it doesn't surprise me that the Eagles were favored. If everybody was at full strength, I've said this, the line should probably be pick 'em at full strength. So what's Herbert worth knowing that he can still throw the ball and zing the ball and he has all this experience and stuff like that? But what's it worth that their ball playing scheme may be compromised just a little bit? And the fact that you don't really get full, unfortunately, the fans haven't bought into the Chargers enough that they don't get full home field advantage. So I kind of look at this game as something that I don't know who it wouldn't surprise me if Philly won. The Chargers had 2 weeks to prepare last week. I think with a well-coached team with Jim Harbaugh, you're asking the Raiders to go against a rested Charger team. That's not going to happen. We saw what happened last week. Now they get an extra day and a half at least. So I think it'll be an interesting game, but I'm not going to predict it.
so many fascinating games. There's a lot of poop games out there too. So invest and wager wisely. Again, we got a playoff game tonight, 3.5. And I did see. Here's the other thing, Ron. And I'm not a steam guy, as you know. An over under that opened at 53.5. That was, hanging around, maybe some 54s. They shot it up to 55 and 55.5 in some spots. So there was another move there. So maybe first one to 30 wins this game, or that's what they're expecting. Can't wait there. But as always, how we wrap up another segment here. And as I talked to Matt Grissom, we'll have you obviously on next week. That will be the 11th. And then we got the 18th. And then those next 2 weeks, we're falling into New Year's and Christmas, so we're gonna have to figure that out. But nice tight 7.5 yard spiral for the Ron button hook and Ron's closing thoughts.
Well, this is a fascinating year in the NFL. It's kind of turned upside down with Chicago leading a division, New England, and so on. I think what's fascinating from a handicapping point of view, we don't get into it that much, is this is a very interesting week if you delve into some of the future markets. You have sites that are placing season win totals even this late in the season. You have will they or won't they make the playoffs this late in the season? And we got a lot of 3-team races with that. And then you have divisional futures. Who's going to win the division? And it's just crazy because you have Houston, Jacksonville, and Indianapolis in one division. You have Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay in another division. You have the Chargers, and you have Denver, and you have Kansas City. Who's going to make the playoffs of those three? You can't have three in two different divisions, right? You can't have all six of Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Houston, and the Chargers, and Denver, and KC get in. And then you have the Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit situation. San Francisco, we didn't even talk about San Francisco because they're not playing this week. But San Francisco, Seattle, and the Rams, at most only 5 of those 6 teams to get in. There's value somewhere in those numbers. So if you have a conviction as to whether a team's going to be up or whether a team's going to be down, take a look at those divisional races. Take a look at who might get in the playoffs or not get in the playoffs. Look at the situational spots as far as who's at home, who's not at home, who has rest, who doesn't have rest, what's happening on week 18, which is always a pivotal week for either hedging or doubling down and stuff like that. I can't remember a year where there's so many up for grabs, divisional and playoff spots, where we have a lot of decisions that we can make right now.
And I'll close with this. Some people now listen. I don't think Diego Pavia, who's I guess a 3-way tie for the Heisman, because someone brought this up. Why lay the 4 or why take the 4 when both quarterbacks they're saying, and of course Mendoza are right there for the Heisman. I think the winner of the Ohio State Indiana game, the winner is going to get the Heisman. So go take the plus money on whatever side you like in that game. Second of all, I've been saying this, Ron. If you like Dallas tonight to win this game, instead of running to the window and getting the 3.5 and sprinkling beer and pizza money on the money line there, Dak's 15-1 to win the MVP. That's going to get cut in half. That will go to 750 if they win tonight. Take a look at them to win the division. Take a look at them to make the playoffs. Take a look at the Eagles not to win the division and not make the playoffs. There are a lot of options, as you just discussed, on the Sunday card. And I think the championship, the Ohio State-Indiana game on Saturday, and tonight's game, especially if you're a Dallas fan.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting because I was talking more of a team aspect, but certainly from a prop, Heisman and so on and so forth, there are other ways to use the information if you like a team or if you don't like a team. Coach of the year, comeback player of the year, and so on. If you're high on somebody and you think they're going to continue on. So there are other markets that maybe Not all of these factors are being discussed, and you can get a little bit of value that way. The Pavia thing is interesting because I've also heard people say that you get a lot of regionalized votes. And if there's no other candidate in the SEC, maybe you get a lot of SEC votes for Pavia. And right now you've got a split for the two guys in the championship game, Indiana and Ohio State. But you're right. If one of them wins convincingly, it's what you've done lately, and Pavia doesn't play this week.
Listen, guys, run over to X, jump on over to Ron A Sports, find all his work, ask him a question. Believe it or not, he will respond. He's one of the good guys like myself. Tomorrow morning, myself and Scotty Webb will be back around 9:15. I will be on Andy McGinnis's channel at around 10:30 at McGinnis Picks at Wager Talk, and then I'll wrap up the morning segment with Nick Hathcote at 11 a.m. So from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one, the only, Mr. Ron Marmolewski at Ron A Sports. We wish everyone a blessed day. Enjoy the games today. Stay in your lanes and stay tuned.